it's hard for young people to relate to because this really is a maturity issue. And the key word is the word serious. Yiddishkeit is serious. It's not just feeling good. It's not just having a good life. It's earnest. It's responsible. Like you're a counselor and you're in charge of 4-year-olds and you're going out in the street and you're afraid of losing one of them. That's how important Shabbos is. That's how important kosher is. That's how important sneas is. When it comes to girls, those are the big three. That's how important raising children, where Yiddishkeit is the most important thing. Too many of our homes, Lubavitcher homes, wonderful parents, they don't get around to it. They give their kids meaningful lives. They take very good care of them physically. But at the Shabbos table, it's socially very meaningful. But there's not enough religion. There's not enough vartetis, vigunim, because we don't take it seriously. We enjoy it. I think the difference culturally between the word chassidish and the word frum is the difference between meaningful and earnest. Earnest is more important. Earnest is more important. It's a serious business. And this is one of the things that young people struggle with because they perceive earnestness almost like angry. When you have your parents or your teachers, me, that's very serious about something, the perception is, oh, he's uptight. He's not uptight. This is important. If a person was physically ill, you're going to say the most important thing is how you feel, or the most important thing is get healthy and get the treatment you need. To me, this is what the kids are struggling with practically. They want to feel good. It's very important to feel good. But this is serious. And you're going to be married in a minute. Baruch Hashem, last night it was a l'chaim. Yeah. You have one boy in your life. One boy, one girl, that's it. It's not about having fun. It's not just true because it's not sneistic. It's not true because it's too important. Okay, you're going to be married in a heartbeat. And you need to appreciate Yiras Shamayim. Yiras Shamayim. Some things some lines we just don't cross. Period. Even if I don't feel like it. That's the difference between frum and chassidish. And frum is the most important chassidish. It really is. Chassidish people are frum. They're not hippies. They're not, Kalbach. They're not. If you would live in some parts of Lubavitch, you wouldn't know that. But that's the truth. And it's not an answer to your question, but it's certainly insight that you could consider and try to incorporate it. And when you date boys, you'll know that right away.
What about
you'll know right away where they stand on this. Is it more, their definition of Yiddishkeit is how it feels, or this is responsible. And if they don't have a sense of Yiddus Shamayim, you're going to have a very tough ride if you marry them, creating the home you want. What did you say? What about what you just?
I was going to ask, in terms of prioritizing different things, is it, I don't know, at least with football, is it more important to go to Minyan, let's say, for a boy? I don't know, or is it more important to be involved in the rabbi's hierarchies?
If a boy doesn't go to shul and daven with a minyan, I got a problem. I have a very big problem.
Maybe davens, but not like minyan.
No. Does he go to shul? Yeah. Does he go to daven in his house? He has, you see, no one's perfect. People miss a minyan. But then there's people who don't have it in their mindset. It's a serious problem. Unfortunately, too many boys have that problem. But it's not a game. It's not a game for a frum boy to daven in a shul 3 times a day with a minyan. And if he doesn't do that, he often misses davening and occasionally even misses tefillin. It's like a girl not being particular about kosher. It's that important. It's that important. There is, I once said this in one of these classes, either here or seminary Beis, and the reaction I got was so interesting. I said, what do schools and homes have in common? And the answer that I gave, they both must be normal environments, normal. It's peaceful, consistent, orderly, on a schedule. And a lot of the girls pushed back because they were saying, what do you mean it's supposed to be energetic and Hasidish? That's not true. It's not true. The energy of Hasidus has to be on a foundation of normal. The hayayim that they brainwash you with, You don't even think what you're saying when you're saying it. You know what that means?
Normal means orderly.
Normal means orderly, predictable, yes. Peaceful. You're going to raise kids. Not just like psychological health. Their sense of self, their Yiddishkeit is based, a home has to be clean, a home has to be orderly, and I hate to say it, to a great extent it's on the girl. I mean, today men are much more helpful than they were, other guys. I look at myself, I look at my son, it's not the same world. But it's still on the girl to make these things happen. If you don't create that for your children, you may create very Chassidish people, but you're not creating normal people. And normal, Chassidus without normal is like oil and wine without bread and meat. It's not right. And when you have schools, too many of our communities, this is true in camp, we're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, trying to make people Chassidish using magic. But there's no bedtime, and there's no morning, and there's no afternoon, and there's no night. Everything is chaos. But we have Chassidish. That is categorically wrong. Wrong. Now there's a place and a time for it. It's called the Chabad house. That's what a Chabad house is. But a Beis Rivka, or Olateda, a Chassidish home is not a Chabad house. In a Chabad house, you're trying to catch light, you're trying to make magic. And if I bring in where people are shik, you're trying to create magic. That's not life. And you expect that in your husband. Which means, amongst other things, it comes Shabbos. He wants to make a fabrengen, fine. He has to come home. Or at least you have to know he's not coming home. And there has to be a plan. It's not just whatever happens, happens. You have children at home. And your husband has to come home Friday night for sure. It has to be Kiddush. It's to sit at the table. Now, I know that it's Chassidish to stay out a whole Shabbos. I know. But the presumption when a man stays out a whole Shabbos is that his wife is happy that he's doing it, proud that he's doing it, and sees how it supports the home, not how the home is abandoned. So you're going to date boys, and you're going to hear a lot of this. It's very important that they be normal people. They can be very frum, very Chassidish, but if they're not normal, your home is going to be chaos. And they're going to blame it on religion. There's so many people who blame the Eibishter and the Rebbe for all of the Chassidus and Midas Rois. It's got to be normal. And for a man, normal is davening in the shul 3 times a day. A man can't sleep till noon. I don't care what he does. And a girl can't sleep till noon. It happens. So it's not to happen. But it can't be my weakness. Because this weakness is deep. And it's important. When you date, you want to marry a normal person. And a normal person takes Yiddishkeit seriously. And again, to me, I once got really, really drunk on Purim, and I told my daughters, I want you to marry B'nai Torah. You have to marry Talmidei Chachomim. There's no justification from an atzis. A boy goes to yeshiva 10 years, 12 years, and he can't learn Gemara with Rashi. Rebbeinu Shalom, what's this? Now it happens. Kids have dyslexia, reasons why kids can't learn. But the percentage of boys that go through our system who don't value Torah is so much higher than it should be. You don't want to marry one of those guys. Because you want your children to value Torah. You want your home to be a Torah home. And I'm telling you that has a lot to do with Earnest, from versus Chassidish, and normal. It's got to be normal. And a lot of how a boy is going to be, you'll find out from the home he grew up in. Most cases, not all. You know how it goes. If your parents were a bad model of shalom bayis or parenting, you'll either be worse than them or you'll be extreme different than them. And I don't know how you ascertain that, but if a kid grew up in a home where the father respected his wife and came home on time and paid his bills, it's in no way a contradiction to being Chassidish. None at all.
So a lot of times we're told that, let's say the husband is out for bargaining or whatever, it's all about your perspective. So if you're like, oh, it's such a shock.
It's not just your perspective. It's him. How does he come home after the fabrengen? Is he a mensch or is he a pig? These are not complicated things. I don't know, you have any brothers? Your brothers? You know the difference of a boy who comes home shikit, who's a mensch, and a brother who's a pig. There's a difference. You're right, it is your perspective. But it's not only your perspective. Is he doing this because he's a responsible yid and a chassid, or because he likes to have fun? They're not the same. They may look the same, but they're not. And the difference is the before and the after. He has to value normal. He has to value normal. When Lubavitch has become a community that almost celebrates Mishagoyim. Campuses, Chabad House campuses are meant to be crazy places. They are. College is a crazy place. But the Rebbe spent 25 years talking to people in Yechidus. The Rebbe had so many personal contacts with people. We talk about the miracles of the Rebbe and the brachas of the Rebbe and the heroes of the Rebbe in terms of ruchnius. But you know how many times the Rebbe gave people practical advice about how their home should run? How a woman should take care of her children, how a husband should relate to her husband, the husband should relate to the children. There was so much normalcy in the Rebbe's. There are thousands and thousands of hours. I saw one lady, they do all the gem videos now. So they went to Australia, they recorded a bunch of people, and then you got a bunch of Australia. This goes back before the 70 for 120 that they made now. So this was the only woman I heard her say, we didn't have miracles with the Rebbe. We just got from him wisdom of daily living. Most people, most of the time, that's what they got from the Rebbe. Ask Mrs. Chana Gorowitz. Ask, you know who you should ask? Mrs. Swerdlove, Miriam Swerdlove. That generation, Mrs. Groner is different because her husband worked for the Rebbe, which meant she actually had less to do with the Rebbe than most people. But they will all tell you they went into Yechidus, they were talking about their children, and about their home, and about their parnasa, and about their health, and are they taking care of themselves? There was so much normalcy in the Rebbe. That's how a Jewish home has to look. In that framework, there's a fire of Chassidus. I'm not saying Chas v'Sholom to become a balabos, but the fire of Chassidus is a context, and the context is normal. And in terms of religion, for a woman, it's for sure those three things, Shabbos, Kosher, Tnius. And for a man, it's for sure going to shul. He has to go to shul. He has to have a job, men have to support their families, yeah? And I would like them to learn Torah. For themselves, not to pay bills. To enjoy learning Torah. Men, and listen, people are very busy. But there are people who have almost no time to learn. But the few minutes that they learn, they're eating it up. And then the people paying bills. Yeah, I got to say Chitas, I got to say Rambam, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm barely reading the words. Some of you are going to marry such boys, I know that. But you want to marry a boy. One of the good news about the modern world, about this generation, is we're never too old to change. You saw the same at Rambam, where a bunch of very modern Lubavitchers said, I'm learning 3 Prakim Rambam. That's going to change their whole life. It's going to change their home. Now those guys are closer to my age, they're 50. It would be nice that they figured it out when they were 25. But we grow. We have that possibility. When you're dating a boy, these things are very important.
We shouldn't count on the fact that he'll grow later, right?
I say this again and again and again and again and again. What you see is what you get. That's it. When a girl goes out with a boy, I'll give you the 2 typical examples. And the boy says to the shadchan, she's a little bit overweight. And the shadchan says, don't worry, she'll lose weight after the wedding, she promises. The girl goes out with her boy, and the girl goes up to the shadchan and says, he smokes. And the shadchan will say, don't worry, after the wedding, you promise to stop smoking. Lie, period. What you see is what you get. Now, it could change, it could get better, but that's not how you get married. No, unless you really like him. You have to, in other words, if the guy has so many milas and he has one chasadim, don't be a fool. You know what I'm saying? Some people are batlonim. They can't get up in the morning, but they're tzaddikim. And they, every rule has exceptions. I'm not talking about that guy who gets up late, but he learns a half a night. I'm not talking about that. Or spends his day and night being makar of people. I'm talking about the built-in laziness. Too many people are just spending years just because they're not married and just half their days go away with nothing. They have no account. Where'd you go? What'd you do? A person's supposed to work hard, you know that? Not just to make money, but to be a self-respecting person. You want to marry one of those. Now, he's not going to be as chilled, but he's going to be a grown-up. And getting married is being grown up. I hate to break it to you. It's not fun. It's beautiful. It's meaningful. It's full of love. But it's not fun. Fun you get out now. When you get married, you'll spend the first year having fun also. But you marry the kind of person that's going in a direction of being a responsible person. A responsible Lubavitcher, a responsible chassid, a responsible shliach. I do want to sort of say that there is a balance. I'm not square. I'm not square. In other words, Chassidus is very important. The Fabring is very important. The energy, the joy, the life, the Mesiras Nefesh is very important. And if you marry a guy who has all the milas I described before, but he's pashat af hashlofana, that's a problem too. But the foundation of a home has to be normal. And this I say, a school, you walk into a school and there's garbage on the floor. You can't teach like that. You can't. Why is it allowed? Because there's so much energy in the school. It's true, but it's not enough. The energy has to be on a foundation of order, normalcy. I taught Mesivta Baruch in high school. Every day I walked into the classroom. I said, make rows. They sat. I came at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. They'd been sitting since 9 o'clock in the morning, the Gemara teachers. The classroom looked like a car crash. They were just sitting on top of each other. And I said to the teacher, why don't you care that the kids sit normally on the rows? And I would bring in a broom and I'd sweep the floor myself. I had 1 hour with the kids. I spent 20 minutes setting up the room. And the teacher said, it's too hard. I said, but this is education. You're teaching them, you're not just wasting time, you're teaching them self-respect. And when you walk into a school and it's clean and it's orderly, and I hate to say it, it's quiet in the hallways, that is an environment where children can learn. When you walk into a school and there's a lot of singing and jumping on desks, it's b'diavad. It means there's something wrong with the foundation and we're trying to make the best out of a situation. It happens. That's not how you build. That's how you survive. But you build, creating normal. So I'm not saying marry one of those boring bacharim who's going to make sure he makes a living. He's not going to spend 1 penny more than he earns, and he's very square, very controlled. Not that people should be responsible fiscally, but a little bit. In America, you can borrow money and live. But the foundation has to be normal. And for a man, if a guy never goes to shul, or he misses minyan, I don't know, more times than he doesn't, I have a very big problem with that. A bachar, a ben shalaylam. This is fundamental frumkeit. It's to me almost, it's not exactly, it's almost the same as a girl who eats anything that has any kosher symbol. Goes into any restaurant as long as it says kosher. And I would tell a boy not to marry such a girl. Because for a girl, kosher is everything. Kosher, Taras HaMishpacha, and Shabbos. That's her world. That's her Yiddishkeit. And of course, raising children, chinuch. If you physically can handle your kids, your husband stays home from shul and he helps you. But you really want your husband to go to shul. For your children's sake. For your children's sake. Don't be one of those women. Don't be one of those women that says, I married you, now we're partners. You have different roles. A man belongs in shul. A man has to go to Shir at night. You make it as possible for him to do that, which means you're spending more of the time with the children. If you need a help, you ask him to help you.
What if you need to work like today?
Same thing. Same thing. But don't be one of those women who says, as long as the kids are little, you're putting him to bed and getting him up in the morning. He needs to go to shul.
I said that, what if he needs to make Earnest?
If he has to make a living, he has to make a living. You have to do whatever you have to make a living. There's a culture, there's a whole new generation of young boys and girls where I'm not sure it's more on the girls, more on the boys. They're incredibly good husbands. They look very good care of their children. They're very helpful to their wives and all those other things. At the expense of being a man. At the expense of going to shul, at the expense of going to a fabrengen, and certainly at the expense of learning Torah. It's not good. It's not. If you need it, you need it. Not every woman can cope. And there's certainly years in a marriage where there's a lot of little kids and the guy needs to pitch in, give the kids baths and put them to bed. You want your man to do what men need to do, to go to shul, to learn Torah. Because that's what they're teaching your kids, that this is important. And if you get married and you don't understand that, and at every small difficulty you make your husband come home, you're emasculating him, first of all. You're taking away his manliness. But you're also teaching your children, it's not good. You know what happens to a man who stops acting like a man? He becomes unattractive to a girl. Girls are drawn to the intensity of a man, to the work ethic, not to the sitting on the couch and drinking beer. It's good for a while. It's not life. Am I answering you? It may be painful what I'm saying.
Father, I suppose if they live in a place where they don't have a shul.
Yeah.
that they're mostly home or mostly work. They made the decision to do that.
Okay.
They're not going to go to shul. Let's say they don't have a mini every day.
Right?
They're not going to shul.
See, I can't answer you. I need to answer your husband. And if he was here, I wouldn't say it to you because it's not fair for you to tell him. I have children like that. I have a son-in-law and a daughter who live in a place that unless they make 50 phone calls, there's no meaning. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Shabbos redt man nicht. Now my son-in-law happens to be a tzaddik. He's a very unusual person. But if I were talking to him, I wouldn't say it to you. Your Chabad says a shul. Your Chabad says a shul. And when you bring people in, go into that shul the same hour every day and daven. That's what I would say. Go into that shul, daven by yourself, but put it on the schedule. Don't get around to it. Structure, b'chalal, it's good to have a seder in life. And shlichim don't always have control. I mean, the world of shlichus is very creative. The world of shlichus is not like having a 9-to-5 job. The nature of shlichus is very, very creative, very artistic. It's hard and creative. Both of those things are hard. The combination is impossibly hard. So shluchim can't always, but that should be his mindset. I'm 500 miles from the nearest minyan. I have a minyan maybe once a month or whatever. I go into shul and daven at the same time every day, and I learn my Shem Tzedek every day. You create for yourself a sense of normality. And when the kids grow up, you bring your children into the shul in the morning and say, look, Tati's davening. It's part of the chinuch.
Yeah.
I really would like to say that when you're doing the dating, your parents need to ask these questions. You really want to know this before you meet. When you meet a boy, the real reason you're meeting is partial to decide if you like him. If you don't know the answers to these questions before you date, there's something wrong. And you can tell your parents in my name that the teachers lie through their teeth. The mashpim, the Rosh Hashivas, plain simple don't know. You want the truth about a bacher? You want the truth about a girl? Ask his friends or her friends. Now, of course, they never want to say anything bad. It's just an intonation, just a trup. But you know, a guy calls out for his son and he says, does he drink? If the answer is breathe, 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 no, the answer is yes. Does he smoke? If the answer is not no, then the answer is yes. Does he go to shul? He tries. You want the truth? Ask the friends. That's just the way it works. And they protect him, and they give everything away. But you hope that you have parents who can do this legwork for you. And of course, the most important thing is, and this is very hard, that you and your parents should be on the same page. Not just that you should want what your parents want, but your parents want what you want. If you're not so chassidish, and it happens, you don't want such a high standard, you must tell your parents the truth. They're not going to guess right. Even if you tell them, they're going to still want them to marry someone who's in their image. But you have to say, Ma, I need to marry this kind of boy. And after you date a boy and he's not that, you come home and you explain, I need to marry this kind of boy. And you hope that your parents or one of them has enough wisdom to understand that that's what they need to find for you, because it's going to go round and round in a circle. It's not going to go anyplace. Or God forbid you're going to marry someone that you're not happy with, which would be a big mistake.